Reed never thought his first day as a diplomatic interpreter would decide the fate of entire star systems. He was a quiet man with tired eyes, messy hair, and a habit of fidgeting with the sleeves of his uniform when he felt nervous. Everyone else on the shuttle heading toward the grand capital of the Empire looked confident and prepared, only felt a rising wave of panic. For days, he had studied the greeting he was supposed to deliver to the alien queen. It was short, simple, and repeatedly practiced. But the language relied on rhythm and tone more than any Earth dialect and always struggled with tones. Even so, he kept telling himself he would be fine. People who believed that usually were. When the shuttle landed, he followed a group of diplomats through enormous crystalline gates that glowed softly like rising moons. The hall inside was breathtaking, tall pillars grown from living stone, floating lanterns made of transparent shells, and a faint humming sound that filled the air like distant singing. For a moment, forgot his anxiety. He felt small, but in a beautiful way, like standing under a sky full of stars. Then the doors opened, and he saw her. Queen stood at the far end of the hall, surrounded by her ministers and guards. She was taller than a human, graceful as flowing water, with silver-toned skin and golden eyes that looked both ancient and kind. Her crown shimmered with tiny living vines that moved gently, as if responding to her breath. The entire hall bowed in quiet respect. Felt his heart jump. This was the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, and he, not even the most experienced interpreter, had been chosen to deliver Earth's greeting because the senior linguist fell ill that morning. Still believed it was a mistake. He stepped forward, clutching the translation tablet like a lifeline. His palms were sweaty, his throat tight. Every alien in the hall watched him. Even the air felt heavy. Queen nodded softly. "Human Reed, Earth sends a voice. Speak your message." Her voice was calm and warm, but it still made knees weaken. He inhaled deeply and lifted his chin. He was supposed to say, "Earth offers peaceful partnership." But as he opened his mouth, fear twisted his breath. His voice trembled. His tongue slipped on a single tone, just one tiny shift, changing the sentence completely. What came out meant, "I pledge myself to you as life mate." The hall fell silent, as if the universe had stopped breathing. Ministers stared, guards stiffened. The floating lanterns dimmed slightly, reacting to the sudden tension. Felt the translator on his wrist vibrate with red flashing warnings. He knew immediately he had said something terribly wrong. Queen blinked, her golden eyes widening. For a long moment she said nothing, felt sweat run down his spine. He wished the floor would open and swallow him whole. Then slowly the queen stepped toward him. "Human," she said in a soft, strangely gentle tone, "your declaration is unexpected." Swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, I mean it was a mistake." But the queen raised her hand, and the hall quieted even more. "A life bond is sacred among my people," she continued. "It is not spoken lightly. To offer oneself in unity means courage, loyalty, and a promise stronger than treaties." Felt his legs wobble. His voice was a whisper. I truly didn't mean." Before he could finish, ceremonial drums began to echo from the balconies. White-robed attendants approached him, draping a glowing blue sash across his shoulders. Gasps rippled across the hall. Heart raced so fast it hurt. Queen looked into his eyes, searching them gently, as if studying his soul. "Your heart tells me you did not intend this," she said softly. "Yet the stars may have intentions of their own." Felt helpless, embarrassed, terrified. But beneath all that, he also felt a strange warmth, something new, something he didn't understand. The queen took one more step, close enough that he felt her presence like a warm breeze. "Do not fear, Reed," she said quietly. "Whether this is fate or mistake, it will shape our future. The question is, how will you face it?" Had no answer. He only knew the galaxy would never be the same again. Woke the next morning in a guest chamber of the palace. The room was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth, walls made of a smooth, translucent material that glimmered like liquid silver, and a floor that seemed to hum softly under his weight. Through the tall windows, he could see the floating gardens outside, where flowers glowed with gentle, pulsating light. Everything about this place was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair. His mind replayed the previous day, the words he had spoken, the queen's calm gaze, and the sash draped across his shoulders that symbolized the life bond he never meant to offer. He had broken every rule of diplomacy by accident, yet somehow the queen had not punished him. Instead, she had smiled. A soft knock echoed at the door. Before it could respond, it slid open, revealing an attendant with delicate features and silver hair braided like flowing rivers. "Your presence is requested in the council chamber," the attendant said. "The queen wishes to discuss the human proposal." I'm not ready," he admitted. His voice sounded smaller than usual, almost childish. "The queen understands. She requests only your honesty." Honesty? Had no idea what honesty would do in a room full of aliens who could judge truth from heartbeats. But he followed the attendant anyway, stepping into the corridor where the walls shimmered with colors he couldn't name. His feet felt heavy, and every step made his stomach twist. The council chamber was enormous, shaped like a crescent moon. Ministers and advisors sat in silent rows, their golden eyes fixed on him. At the far end, Queen stood waiting. Her posture radiated authority, yet her gaze softened as he entered. "Human Reed," she said, her voice echoing like soft chimes. "Yesterday you pledged yourself to me in a life bond, a bond that connects our decisions and even our very destinies. Why did you speak these words?" Swallowed, he wanted to explain everything, the nervousness, the mispronunciation, the fear. But somehow it all sounded weak in his mind. Instead, he blurted out, "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to greet you properly. I made a mistake." The chamber went silent. Then slowly the queen stepped forward. Her golden eyes met his, and she smiled, not mocking but thoughtful, curious, almost hopeful. "Mistakes can lead to unexpected truths," she said softly. "Humans and have misunderstood each other for centuries. Perhaps your mistake is what we needed to see." Blinked, "I don't understand. You're not angry." Shook her head. "Anger would be wasted energy. What matters is the courage behind your words. You dared to speak something meaningful, even if by accident. That courage is rare." The council murmured among themselves, but no one contradicted her. Realized that in their culture, honesty and courage might matter more than perfect etiquette. Then the queen turned her attention fully to him. "The universe faces growing conflicts. Other species doubt humanity's intentions. Some fear our people will never cooperate. But now, through your words, we have a path, a symbol of unity. The life bond represents more than marriage. It represents a promise that we can stand together. Can you accept that responsibility?" Heart thumped so loudly it felt like it would burst. He had never imagined being part of anything so immense. Yet a strange warmth filled him. He felt that somehow he was part of something bigger than himself. Something worth standing up for, even if it terrified him. I don't know if I deserve it," he whispered, "but I'll try, I'll do my best." Smile widened and a soft glow surrounded her crown. "That is all I ask. Courage does not require perfection, only the willingness to move forward." From that moment understood that a single human could influence an empire, not through strength, not through weapons, but through heart and honesty. The council session ended, yet whispers of his proposal spread throughout the palace. Humans watching from Earth had no idea what was happening, but they began seeing Earth not as a distant world, but as a potential ally, a partner in the galaxy. Walked back to his room, feeling the weight of the sash heavier than ever, but not as a burden. It felt like a thread connecting him to the queen, to her people, and to a future he had never imagined. Outside, the floating gardens swayed under the twin suns, their glowing flowers shimmering like stars. Stopped for a moment, taking it all in. A simple mistake, a nervous word, had begun something extraordinary. Somehow he realized that the galaxy had just shifted, and he, an ordinary human, was standing at the center of it. The days that followed were a whirlwind for. He had not expected the life bond to carry so much weight. Everywhere he went, eyes watched him, not with suspicion but with quiet curiosity. Ministers whispered behind his back, and guards who once looked intimidating now regarded him with a mix of respect and caution. He had stepped into a world far older than humanity, And suddenly, every gesture, every word mattered. Despite the honor, felt the constant gnaw of fear. He knew the mistake he had made was monumental. One slip, one wrong gesture, and the fragile trust between Earth and the Empire could shatter. He spent long hours in his quarters, poring over cultural protocols, trying to learn subtle gestures, every nuance of tone, every rhythm of speech. Yet no matter how hard he studied, he worried that he would fail. Then came the first real test. A delegation from the rival species, arrived at the palace. Their presence alone filled the hall with tension. Though were known for their cunning and brutality, they had ignored every attempt at peace for decades. Now, with accidental bond public, both humans and were walking on a knife's edge. The queen called him to her side. She said, her voice calm but firm, "You will attend the negotiation. They will expect an inexperienced human to falter. But your honesty, your courage, may be the only thing that can tip the balance." Swallowed, his heart pounded like a war drum. He had never been in a negotiation like this before. His job had always been translating words, not guiding galactic destinies. Yet when he looked into the Queen's golden eyes, he saw trust, patience, and, surprisingly, hope. He could not let her down. The delegates entered. Their skin was dark and ridged, their eyes sharp as obsidian. They sneered when they saw standing beside. "The human thinks to speak for their planet," one of them hissed. Mouth went dry, his voice trembled as he began translating the Queen's words. But they were skilled at picking weakness. They tested him with pointed questions, trying to provoke anger or confusion. Felt sweat slide down his spine. Each wrong word could ignite a war. Then instinct took over. He remembered the Queen's words, "Courage does not require perfection." He answered simply, honestly, and without fear. He spoke not only what the Queen said, but also what he felt, emphasizing humanity's desire for unity and peace. His tone was steady, his heart sincere. They paused. Whispers ran through their ranks. They had not expected a human to hold his ground, to speak with truth and confidence. Realized something extraordinary. Sometimes, honesty and heart could be more powerful than any weapon or threat. When the session ended, the Queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "Today you showed that humans are not merely fragile creatures of emotion. They possess strength born of heart and spirit." Chest swelled, but relief was mixed with fear. Though it would return with more challenges. The galaxy was not yet safe. Yet he had glimpsed the power of humanity, something the stars had not seen before. That night he stood on the balcony, overlooking the glowing gardens and floating lanterns. Joined him silently. The twin suns had set, leaving only the soft luminescence of the palace and gardens. "You surprised them today," she said, her voice low. "I knew courage resided in humans, but you gave it form. You reminded them that life is more than strategy. It is loyalty, honesty, and the willingness to face fear." Shivered, but not from cold. "I'm just a human. I wasn't supposed to do this. I made a mistake, and somehow it became important." Smiled. "Mistakes can lead to revelations. You have shown that the heart can shape diplomacy, and that even a single human can become a turning point in galactic history." Looked at her, trying to absorb the weight of her words. For the first time, he realized that being human with all his weaknesses and fears was not a liability. It was a gift. His honesty, his emotions, his courage, imperfect and raw, had become a bridge between worlds. In that moment, knew that the accidental life bond was no longer a burden. It was a responsibility he could not ignore, a symbol of hope, and perhaps the spark of something greater than himself. Somewhere deep in the Empire, whispers spread. A human had changed the course of diplomacy through courage alone. And for the first time, humanity was more than observers in the galaxy. They were participants. Clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the sash once more. This was only the beginning. The stars had set their stage, and he, an ordinary man, had taken his first step into legend. The calm of the palace was shattered the next morning. Awoke to the frantic hum of alerts from the communications room. The sensors had detected a fleet entering the outer system, thousands of ships, bristling with weapons, moving with the precision of war-hardened veterans. They were not only testing diplomacy, they were preparing for an attack. Stomach twisted. The Queen's advisors argued in rapid bursts of alien language, their voices rising and falling like the tide. Could only catch fragments, but the meaning was clear. The Empire was in danger, and humans had a role now. His accidental proposal, the life bond, meant that humanity and though were symbolically connected. If war broke out, humans could either be allies or casualties of betrayal. Entered the chamber, her presence immediately commanding silence. Her golden eyes swept over the maps and reports before settling on. "Human Reed," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "The galaxy tests our unity. Will you stand with your people and mine?" Felt the weight of the question like a stone on his chest. He wanted to run, hide, pretend this was not happening, but he remembered the courage that had carried him through the negotiation. He had spoken honestly then, and truth had strengthened him. Now it was the same, only greater. I will do what I can," he said, his voice low but firm. "We cannot be silent. We cannot let fear rule us." The Queen nodded, a faint warmth in her expression. "Then you shall see what humans can do. Prepare yourself. You will not fight alone, but your role will be crucial." Spent hours in the strategy chamber, learning battle formations, communication methods, and defensive strategies. He was human, no super strength, no advanced technology beyond what Earth provided. But the Queen recognized a different kind of power in him: creativity, empathy, and intuition. She trusted that humans, guided correctly, could anticipate moves that even the most experienced generals could not. By the time the enemy fleet entered the outer rim, stood on the bridge of the lead ship, beside Queen. The stars stretched like ribbons, and the blackness of space was dotted with the approaching threat. He could feel his heart pounding in rhythm with the hum of the ship's engines. They attacked first, their energy beams cutting through the void. Alarms blared, shields flared. Instinct screamed panic, but he remembered the Queen's lessons: calm, observation, and decisive action. He spotted a weakness in the enemy formation, a tiny gap between two cruisers. He shouted the coordinates to the fleet commanders, who hesitated, then obeyed. Within moments, the fleet maneuvered into position, encircling the air and forcing them into retreat. The battle ended as quickly as it began, but did not feel victory. He felt awe. The humans, the Queen, they had stood together and changed the tide of war, and he had been a part of it. After the battle, the Queen invited him to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly, but felt a strange closeness to them now, turned toward him. "You have done more than I imagined, Reed," she said softly. "The galaxy has seen the heart of humanity. Your courage, your honesty, your willingness to act, it inspires even those who doubt us." Shook his head. "I'm just human. I made mistakes. I don't deserve praise." The Queen's gaze softened. "It is because you are human that you inspire. Strength does not always come from power or weapons. Sometimes it comes from heart, from choice, from the willingness to face fear despite the odds." Felt an unfamiliar warmth, a mix of pride and humility. For the first time, he truly believed that humanity, small, fragile, flawed, could stand among the stars, not as observers but as equals. He looked out at the distant lights of retreating ships and felt a spark ignite within him, a determination to continue, to learn, to fight not for glory, but for the promise of peace. His accidental life bond had begun as a mistake, but now it symbolized something far greater: trust between worlds and the potential of humans to rise when the universe needed them most. That night, as the palace settled into quiet again, stood alone on the balcony. The twin moons reflected on his hands, and he traced the glowing sash across his chest. What had begun as an error was now a responsibility he embraced with all his heart. He was human. He was afraid, but he was no longer small. The galaxy had tested him, and he had stood tall. The days after the battle were filled with uneasy calm. Walked the halls of the palace with a new sense of purpose, yet he could not shake the feeling that the universe was holding its breath. Every conversation, every glance from reminded him that he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of something bigger than himself. Queen summoned him one morning to the gardens, a place of floating platforms and glowing vines where light shimmered like gentle stars. He arrived to find her standing by a fountain, the water reflecting the colors of her bioluminescent crown. She did not speak immediately. She simply watched him, her gaze calm and penetrating. she said finally, her voice soft as wind over crystal. The life bond you offered, though unintentional, has shifted something deeper than treaties or alliances. It has created trust, even among those who would resist peace. Swallowed, I never meant it. It was a mistake. I was nervous. I spoke the wrong words. Eyes softened. Sometimes mistakes reveal the truth hidden beneath caution. You have shown courage, honesty, and empathy, qualities that even the most experienced diplomats lack. That is why this bond, accidental as it may be, matters more than any agreement written on paper. Felt a strange warmth at her words, a mixture of relief and fear. For weeks, he had been trying to prove himself through strategy, through words, even through battle. Yet now he realized that simply being human, being honest and brave, was enough to change hearts. A sudden ripple of movement caught his attention. From the corner of the garden, the Queen's attendants approached, carrying a small, glowing orb. A gift, explained. A token of the life bond. It responds to sincerity. It will guide you when words are not enough. Took the orb carefully. It pulsed faintly against his palms, almost like a heartbeat. He could feel the warmth of it spreading through his body, calming his fears. It was strange and beautiful, yet it felt like an extension of his responsibility, something he could not ignore. Over the next days, began to notice subtle changes. Diplomats who had once looked at him with doubt now consulted him openly. Young cadets lingered in his presence, asking questions about humans, their courage, and their choices. Even the Queen's advisors, who had been skeptical at first, treated him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. His life bond, accidental as it had become a bridge not only between species but between hearts. One evening found himself in the palace library, poring over histories of previous conflicts. He understood that his small human heart was standing in the middle of something ancient and immense. Empires rose and fell, battles raged across systems, but he realized that a single honest choice could ripple through time, altering the fate of thousands, even millions. The Queen appeared silently beside him, her presence filling the room without sound. "You understand now, don't you?" she asked gently. "Strength is not always in weapons or armies. Sometimes it is in trust, in honesty, in willingness to act even when the outcome is uncertain." Nodded, overwhelmed by the simplicity and truth of her words. I think I understand. It's human courage, isn't it? Ordinary humans can change extraordinary things if we have honesty and heart. Smiled faintly. Exactly. And that is why you are here, Reed, not as a warrior, not as a general, but as a human, one who dares to act with heart. The orb in hand pulsed, brighter this time, and he realized that the Queen was right. Courage, honesty, and empathy were powerful enough to inspire trust across galaxies. That realization filled him with both awe and humility. As he left the library, walking through the softly glowing corridors, he felt a strange connection to the Queen. Not romance, not obligation, but something deeper. A mutual understanding, a recognition of the responsibility each had accepted. Humanity had been tested, and through one small, accidental act, they had proven that heart could shape the fate of worlds. Paused on the balcony, looking out over the luminescent gardens, the floating fountains, and the endless stars beyond. The galaxy had changed. He had changed. And in that moment he felt ready for whatever challenge would come next, knowing that courage and honesty, his human heart, would guide the way. The universe rarely gave second chances, and Reed knew it. Weeks had passed since the attack, and though the Empire had regained calm, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Could feel it in every whisper, every cautious glance. Some envoys still doubted humanity's value, while humans across distant colonies watched anxiously, unsure if their accidental hero would survive in this alien world. One morning, the Queen summoned to the council chamber again. This time, the atmosphere was heavier, charged with quiet urgency. Holographic maps of distant systems rotated slowly above the table, showing clusters of fleets moving like predator and prey. Realized that diplomacy alone would not be enough this time. Action would be required. "Reed," said, her voice clear and resolute, "an unprecedented situation arises. A nearby neutral system faces invasion from the Earth. If it falls, the entire sector could be destabilized. You, as a symbol of the human bond, must lead a delegation to offer assistance." chest tightened. Lead a delegation. He was not a soldier, not a strategist. He was human, yes, but ordinary. The thought of failure was terrifying, yet when he looked at the queen, he saw the trust shining in her golden eyes. He could not refuse, not now. I will do it, he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. I will do my best. Nodded, your honesty and courage have always guided you. Let them guide you again. The journey to the neutral system was tense. Traveled aboard a small diplomatic cruiser, flanked by officers and human envoys. Communication with the neutral system was slow, their ships unprepared for coordinated defense. Realized that hesitation would cost lives. He took a deep breath, recalling the lessons he had learned since his accidental proposal. The heart could influence strategy. Courage could bridge fear. Honesty could earn trust where intimidation failed. He met with the neutral systems leaders, speaking plainly, not in the elaborate language of politics, but in words that carried truth. I am here, he told them, not as a conqueror, not as a hero, but as someone who believes in the power of unity. You are not alone. Together we can stand against those who would destroy your world. The leaders studied him, silent, unsure. And then one by one they responded, not with grand declarations, not with weapons, but with willingness to trust humans, to join forces with felt his heart leap. This was what the Queen had meant when she spoke of the power of courage and honesty. The next days were filled with coordination, training, and planning. Presence, his sincerity became a rallying point. Humans and officers worked side by side, sharing knowledge and learning from one another. They attempted a surprise strike, but the United Fleet anticipated their moves, intercepting them with precision. The battle was short but decisive. No human or life was lost, and the neutral system remained free. Stood on the command deck, watching the retreat into the darkness. He felt a wave of exhaustion, relief, and pride crash over him. Humans, ordinary, fragile, imperfect humans, had helped protect a galaxy. Later, the Queen joined him, her gaze sweeping the stars. You have done more than anyone could have expected, she said softly. You have shown that human courage, though different from strength, can shape the destiny of worlds. Looked down at his hands, still trembling from the weight of responsibility. I didn't do this alone, he said. The people I met, even the Queen, they guided me. I just tried to be honest. Smile was gentle but unwavering. That honesty combined with courage is enough. It always is. For the first time, felt fully human and fully capable at the same time. He understood that strength was not always measured in weapons or power, but in choices. Choices to act, to trust, and to stand for what is right. The accidental life bond that had terrified him now shone as a symbol of hope. As the stars stretched endlessly beyond the cruiser's windows, realized that the galaxy had changed. Humanity was no longer a distant, fragile species. They were participants, allies, and a force that could influence destiny through heart and courage. And he, a simple human, had sparked that change. Closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the sash against his chest. Mistake or destiny, it no longer mattered. What mattered was the choice he had made, to step forward, to act, and to believe. The stars awaited, and new humanity had finally found its place among them. The galaxy had grown quieter since the battles and negotiations. Though it had retreated, at least for now, and alliances had begun to solidify. But Reed knew that peace was never permanent in a universe so vast and unpredictable. What mattered was the foundation humanity had laid, trust, courage, and honesty that no fleet or weapon could ever replicate. He stood on the balcony of the palace, the twin moons reflecting in his eyes, the glowing gardens stretching below like rivers of light. The weight of the ceremonial sash on his shoulders no longer felt like a burden. It had become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even ordinary humans could shape extraordinary events. Queen approached him quietly. She did not need words at first. Her presence alone carried reassurance and authority. Looked at her and realized something he had been learning slowly over these weeks. True strength was not power alone, nor fear, nor control. It was connection, the courage to trust, to act honestly, to believe in something bigger than oneself. You have changed the course of history, Reed, she said softly, her golden eyes reflecting the stars. A simple human, through honesty and courage, has reminded an empire that hearts can be as strong as weapons. Shook his head. I just did what felt right. I wasn't supposed to be important. I didn't plan any of this. Smiled a quiet, knowing smile. Importance is often accidental. Destiny sometimes chooses the unexpected. Your words, your choices, they have become a light not just but for humanity itself. Other species now see that humans are more than fragile creatures. They see that we have a heart, and that heart can guide the stars. Felt a lump in his throat. For so long, humans had been observers in the galaxy, small and overlooked. But here, in this moment, he realized that the galaxy's story could be rewritten by those willing to act with courage. And sometimes, even mistakes, like his accidental proposal, could spark revolutions of trust and unity. The Queen reached out, placing a delicate hand over the glowing sash on his chest. This bond, though unintended, has shown that alliances can begin with honesty and hope, not just strategy or fear. The galaxy has witnessed a new path. Humanity is no longer distant. You are no longer distant. You have led us here. Closed his eyes briefly, feeling the pulse of the sash, the warmth of her words, the weight of responsibility. He realized that fear and doubt were part of being human, but so was courage, and sometimes courage was enough to change worlds. Later in the council chamber, he saw the ministers, generals, and envoys of multiple species gathered together. They had come to formally recognize the human alliance. As the Queen spoke, praising honesty, bravery, and intuitive insight, felt a deep pride, not for himself alone, but for all of humanity. Ordinary humans living on a fragile planet had earned the trust of civilizations light years away. One of the younger cadets approached him afterward, eyes wide with admiration. "I never believed humans could stand among us," the cadet admitted. "But you showed us they can change everything." Smiled, feeling something profound stir inside him. "We all have courage," he said quietly. "Sometimes it just takes the right moment to show it." That night, as he returned to the palace balcony, the stars stretched infinitely above, glittering like scattered diamonds. The twin moons shone gently, illuminating the gardens below. Touched the glowing sash lightly and whispered to himself, "Maybe humans aren't so small after all." The Queen joined him silently, gazing at the constellations. For the first time, understood that the galaxy had room for fragile, ordinary, imperfect humans, and that their hearts could be stronger than any weapon. The accidental proposal that had terrified him weeks ago had become a turning point, a beacon of hope. Breathed deeply, feeling the cool night air of an alien world and the warmth of his responsibility. He realized that humanity had found its place, not as observers, not as bystanders, but as creators of alliances, defenders of peace, and bearers of courage. And in the quiet of that moment, with the galaxy spread endlessly before him, Reed knew one truth that would guide him forever. Mistakes can become miracles, honesty can become power, and even the smallest human heart can light up the stars. The universe had tested him, humanity had risen, and together they had begun a new chapter among the stars.